it's Jean from the Inky Owl Studio. Welcome to my channel if you're a regular subby, and welcome for the first time if you've just found me. I am so happy that you have stopped by for a few minutes. Today I want to talk about creative stitching on paper. And I am only going to use two basic stitches for these creative stitches. I'm using the zigzag and the straight stitch because almost every modern machine comes with those two stitches, and you do not need a fancy expensive machine to have fun stitching on paper. In fact, you don't need a machine that does anything but sew. As long as it's working, you don't have to worry about it, going through paper, because it's very easy for your machine to do so. I know some machines might not like thick things, but if you're just going to do a couple layers of paper, any machine is really going to be able to handle that. And so I want to get started first of all talking about the zigzag stitch just a little bit. And just in case you're not real familiar, you are going to have two settings on your machine to adjust your stitches. One setting is going to be called the width, and the other one is going to be called the length. So this is really important for zigzags because it's going to determine how your zigzag is going to appear. So with the width, that adjustment is saying, well, I want my zigzag to be this far apart each time it comes, back and forth on it. So, oops. So that would be like the width, and I'm exaggerating. I mean, I don't think any machine does it quite this wide, but I'm exaggerating it for visual. Or I only want it to come, like this. All right. So that's what the width is determining, is how your machine goes back and forth and how wide it's going to make that zigzag. The length, however, is going to determine how often it goes back and forth. So let's say you increase the length and now you're doing this. So you're maintaining this width, but now with making the length longer, it's doing this. Or you can make it super close together, and so then it kind of does this pattern. So this is what the length is determining. So I actually stitched on here, and I had my setting on my machine. The width was at 2 and the length was at 2. So I got this here. Then I decreased the length from 2 to 1, and then it's the same width, but you see it's closer together. Then I played with the width and increased the width, and even though I kept the length at 1.0, I made it wider. So you can kind of see the difference in it. Now, I'm not doing this because you need to memorize this at all. I'm just showing that by playing with the width and length, you can come up with different effects. And it's worth just taking a sample piece of just scrap paper and start experimenting with the width and length of your zigzag to see what you like, and maybe writing down the settings so you get a visual of what your machine will do at what setting. So that's a little bit about the zigzag. Now, I like to talk about how to use the straight stitch and zigzag to do different kinds of effects. Now, you may say to me, Jean, I cannot sew a straight line. And I'm going to say to you, oh, good. I'm glad you can't, because that's what makes this kind of fun and decorative. Actually, straight lines are kind of boring. I don't encourage them. There are times you do want to do a straight stitch. I understand. Sometimes you want to outline a box, and yes, that's when a straight stitch is useful. But even in that regards, I don't think you have to worry about it being perfect either. So we're not worrying about perfection here at all. The first thing that I'm going to show you then is the wavy line. And I don't know, I hope that this will come across okay for you, Now this setup is very awkward for me because I have to be standing up at the table where my lights are and everything, and do the best I can. So I just I usually start, if I want to go around a journaling card, let's pretend we want to go around a journaling card or a page. This could be a page as well. I tend to start like here in these areas rather than the corners. And you can go as slow as you need to go. Oh, I better adjust my machine to the straight stitch. There we go. You can go as slow as you need to go, and you are just going to wave this line. And then when you get down to a corner, sometimes it's helpful to hand pump it, raise it a little bit, go a stitch, raise it a little bit, go a stitch, and then you can start, you know, traveling down this straighter line. And you can see that I am just doing that. And as you get more practice, you know, it will be a little less stop and go for you on the corners. You'll actually start flowing through them a little bit better. Anyway, so we're just going to do that all the way around. This is really great for outlining something. It's good for you know, a tattered look, a random look. Actually, I did this one time for sort of a cowboy western look, kind of looked like a lasso. Anyways, and so you can just do this wavy line all the way around it. It is more effective, of course, if you actually have a design to look at. It looks really plain when you're looking at a plain card naturally. Then I like to do, usually if I'm going to do this, I do a double one. I like the look of a double outline. And what I try to remember when I do a double is that I don't want to follow the same path. Of course, I want to kind of follow the opposite path. Kind of want to go opposite of where I've been turning around right now. So I will begin stitching not on the line that's here, but I'll begin stitching up here where I will start going like this in my sewing. So let me do that on here. And it doesn't have to be exactly opposite. Sometimes you will be doing the same stitch, but what the goal I like to strive for is to be going in the opposite direction at least some of the time. And this is incredibly different standing up than sitting down at my desk, so I don't know how perfect I'm getting this. Probably not too much. I like to do this a lot, like on the edge of a page, on a journal page, do the perimeter of a journal page. I kind of like this idea. It adds interest to the page. And so there is like the double wavy line stitch that I go around and do it. And you can do as many, well, probably can't do it too many times on paper because it will weaken it. But I would say you might even get away with 3 times to do this. Now, what's really nice about this stitch that I also like, and I like to take 2 contrasting colors. And this one I did sitting down, so it's a little bit nicer looking. 2 contrasting colors and do that double wave look. And I did this a lot, like on my Christmas journals, where I took the red and green, but you know, you can take any 2 colors. And that makes it kind of fun to kind of put this wavy stitch around. And this is just something you just practice with on a scrap piece of paper, and then you're gonna, it won't take long. You'll be surprised. You'll be okay with it. And like I say, don't have to do a straight stitch. Now, another stitch that I think is kind of fun, and I got this from the Creative Cafe girl, Susie, on her channel. I've seen her do this quite often on her work. But you start out with a straight stitch. And I don't know, just go down a little ways. Then you have to lift your needle up. Remember to lift your needle up when you go from zigzag to straight stitch. Then she went over to just doing a zigzag. And she did that a little bit. And then she went back to the straight stitch. And she kind of did that alternating. And sometimes you don't have to do the whole, with this kind of stitch, you don't really have to go all the way around. You can just do a little bit here and there, maybe one down here, and let's do another one down the next side. And let's just see, get this here. Then maybe you want to start out with this, and then raise your needle up, go back to the straight stitch, and then go down like this. So this is kind of fun. It's just fun to randomly put these little stitches in there where you are zigzagging straight, zigzagging straight. So that is a kind of a tattered look type of stitch. Yeah, I think that's really cute. Another idea is to do what I call a faux scallop stitch. Now that is plain round with your length and width. So in this one, I put the width to be very narrow. So I'm going to put my width on 1. And I'm doing a zigzag. I'm going to put my length like on 4. And maybe, yeah, my length on 4. And maybe my width, maybe like a little over 1. There we go. And let me show that to you. So that has kind of a faux scallop look to it. Yeah, so you can see that it's not a zigzag, and it might not be a true scallop, but it kind of has just a slightly different decorative look to your stitching. And again, when you stitch on something that has pattern to it or whatever, it always does look a lot better than just on plain white cardstock. But I just wanted to let you get a sense that, well, this is kind of a scallopy kind of looking stitch, right? It's not a zigzag and it's not a straight, it's somewhere in between. So by adjusting the width to be very low number and the length to be a high number, you kind of get this look. So that's an idea. Now I have another idea, and this is a digi mistake print, so I'm going to use this kind of scrap piece of paper. But you might want to look at your digi prints and see, you know what, where can I put in some zigzags that would just, just give that DigiKit or that printout a little bit of interest. And you do not have to, you can use this on regular scrapbook paper. It doesn't have to be a digi-kit or anything like that. Just some kind of a print that you look at and you see, well, you know what if I were to go in here with my zigzag stitch and pretend to stitch together these two elements. You know, pretend that these are 3D elements, or not 3D, but these are layers, extra layers, and let me just go in there and stitch them together. You know, and kind of do that randomly in your work. That can be a lot of fun too, and kind of give you a sense that, you know, this is not flat, there's actually two layers here. So that is another idea to use. I would recommend using a wide stitch in the beginning to do this with, so that, you know, it's easier for you to stay on track there. But I think that is kind of a creative idea to use with your basic stitches. Now I have one more idea that is probably for those who are a little bit more comfortable and advanced, and I have to go over here and get my thing. And that is called couching. And it's really, it's a doable one for beginners. It may take some practice though. But you know, you really should give this a try. So what I do is I get my piece of fiber and try to make it a rather thick piece. Like this is a piece of twine. You can use yarn, ribbon, something that, you know, I wouldn't use real skinny thread, but something with some bulk to it. And you put this into your machine. Now, most feet that you get, you know, you're going to see where there is the middle of that foot. There's going to be somewhere that you can line up visually and load it on there. They do make sewing feet specifically for couching, but I don't think you should go out and spend money for one. So I don't usually use mine because I'm too much in a hurry. Now I would recommend you put on a wide stitch. So you want to get your width up there, you know, 4 and 5. On my machine it's 4 or 5. And the length of it, you know, average about 2 1/4, 2 1/2 is about average for the length. I would begin this way, and you basically are just going to hold this piece and guide this piece so that is going through the middle. Don't worry what your machine is doing, but just want to make sure that your piece that you're couching is pretty much going through the middle of your foot. And just by holding a little taut here and going slowly, you can line that up. And now you have this that you can do with your machine. And this is kind of a fun look. I did an ocean journal, and I used this stitch on it to I kind of went all the way around journaling cards with it, and it was just kind of a fun look. I used a lot of burlap in that particular journal, so this kind of went well. And as you experiment, you may want a color that blends with your fiber. So that, you know, the fiber stands out, or this is, you know, a little bit darker so that, you know, you have both visual things going on there. You can take a piece of ribbon and do the same with it and put through here. So this is another idea for you to use your basic stitching for your journal. And I do believe that those are the ways that I have thought about sharing with you. I hope this has been helpful, and I hope you will give this a try. And don't worry, I mean, if you've never done this, your first attempts may be less than satisfactory, but I promise that with just a little practice, you'll be surprised at how quickly you will gain the skill to do this. And so that's it. I think this video has been long enough, and thanks for sticking with me, and I hope that you go try this. Thanks for watching, and please subscribe down below for my other videos that go all over the place. I have all kinds, and I hope to see you around here again soon. Have a crafty day. Bye.